Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite Size Book of Mormon. I'm glad to have you with me. So if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where I read one chapter of the Book of Mormon each episode, and I give a little bit of commentary, a little bit of insight, a little bit of thoughts, a little bit of jokes, perhaps. And yeah, you should stick around. It's a good time. So last episode, we read 1 Nephi chapter 20, which is just an entire chapter of Nephi quoting Isaiah. And it's interesting because you can literally read Isaiah 48 in the Bible and read 1 Nephi chapter 20, and they line up pretty good. And so it's interesting to see what the differences are. And so in 1 Nephi chapter 20, it's Isaiah speaking messianically, aka speaking kind of through the voice of Jesus. And this is Jesus talking to the Israelites, talking about how they're kind of failing at being holy. They're not being righteous in the way that God wants them to be. And there's some really interesting images of righteousness. I really enjoyed the characterization of Jesus that Isaiah wrote. They gave him a little bit of righteous indignation, a little bit of righteous frustration, which I compared to being akin to when Jesus was immortal. He flipped tables at the temple because he's righteously indignant that people were misusing the house of God to sell things and make money. I think the emotions of Jesus were kind of very similar between those two events, between this chapter and between that event. It's a very, very good chapter. Go ahead and listen to it. And chapter 21 is another chapter of Nephi quoting Isaiah. This time you can compare it to Isaiah 49, which is the next chapter after the one we read last episode. So yeah, I think without any further ado, we read 1 Nephi chapter 21. And again, hearken, O ye house of Israel, all ye that are broken off and are driven out because of the wickedness of the pastors of my people. Yea, all ye that are broken off, that are scattered abroad, who are of my people, O house of Israel. Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken ye people from far. The Lord hath called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother hath he made mention of my name. And he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword, in the shadow of his hand hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft, in his quiver hath he hid me. And he said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Imagine starting a chapter just being like, hey, everyone from far and wide, listen to me. God has called me to speak to you. He's made my mouth sharp. He's hidden me as a weapon in his quiver. I have been called as his servant to glorify him. Oh my goodness, what an introduction. Hi. Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for naught and in vain. Surely my judgment is with the Lord, and my work is with my God. And now saith the Lord, that formed me from the womb that I should be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. So I like this, because it's talking about how even though Israel is currently failing at his job, because he says his job is to bring Jacob again unto him, and currently Israel is not gathered in that way that he's been called to do, he says, yet I shall be glorious in the eyes of the Lord. That is because he's following the commandments. Even though people aren't listening to him, even though he's not completed his job yet, he's still working on it. He's still following God's commandments. It's like when missionaries go out into the field and they don't really get as much success as they expected, they still get as many blessings from the Lord as if they got all of the success in the world. Because it doesn't matter how people respond to their teaching, it just matters that they are teaching like God commanded them to. This idea of someone following God's commandments and preaching and yet not being met with success but still getting blessings from God reminds me of a part in Alma 8. So Alma, who is a great missionary, we'll talk about him later, is teaching the people in Ammonihah, and then they kick him out, they reject him, and then he, leaves and he's really downtrodden, he feels horrible because these people are just so wicked, and he feels like he failed as a missionary, and then an angel comes unto him, and literally in verse 15 of chapter 8, it says, Blessed art thou, Alma, therefore lift up thy head and rejoice, for thou hast great cause to rejoice, for thou hast been faithful in keeping the commandments of God from the time which thou received thy first message from him. And then, he continues to talk. But that's so cool how the angel doesn't focus on Alma's success. The angel isn't like, hey, it's okay that people didn't listen to you. God still loves you. But he focuses on, hey, you followed God's commandments. You have no reason to be sad. You have done everything that has been asked of you. You will get all the blessings that you deserve because of your righteousness. And that applies here too in 1 Nephi 21. Isaiah has failed, or at least so far has failed, in his job to, bring back Israel together. And yet, he is still glorious in the eyes of the Lord. Why? Because he's followed the commandments. Because he is glorifying him. Even though people aren't listening, he's still doing his job. And he's still following the commandments and doing what God has told him to. Also, obviously, I like that phrase, my God shall be my strength. Because, Heck yeah, dude. And he said, "It is a light thing that thou shouldst be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation to the ends of the earth. Thus saith the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel, his Holy One, to him whom man despiseth, to him whom the nations abhorreth, to servant of rulers, kings shall see and arise, princes also shall worship, because of the Lord that is faithful. Thus saith the Lord, in an acceptable time have I heard thee, O isles of the sea, and in a day of salvation have I helped thee, and I will preserve thee, and give thee my servant for a covenant of the people, to establish the earth, to cause to inherit the desolate heritages. That thou mayest say to the prisoners, Go forth to them that sit in darkness, show yourselves, they shall feed in the ways, and their pastures shall be in all high places. They shall not hunger nor thirst, neither shall the heat nor the sun smite them, for he that hath mercy on them shall lead them, even by the springs of water he shall guide them. And I will make all my mountains a way, and all my highways shall be exalted. And then, O house of Israel, behold, these shall come from far, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim. Sing, O heavens, and be joyful, O earth, for the feet of those who are in the east shall be established, and break forth into singing, O mountains, for they shall be smitten no more, for the Lord hath comforted his people, and will have mercy upon his afflicted. But behold, Zion hath said, The Lord hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me, but he will show that he hath not. I'm sure you're already surprised that I really love that verse. And I really love all these verses. Like, these verses are talking in a very poetic way about the gathering of Israel. People will go forth and gather, and they will be led by God and by springs of water along the way, and all the people shall come from far, and the heavens will sing, and that the mountains will sing, and oh my goodness, it's so fun to read. That's why I didn't really want to pause, because he had such a cool thing going. But then verse 14 is really, really cool, because it says how Zion is like, no, the Lord hath forsaken me, the Lord hath forgotten me. But then Isaiah says, but he will show that he hath not. He has not forgotten the people of Israel, even though they've been scattered at this point. He has not forgotten them, he has not abandoned them, he's not forsaken them. He is coming for them. And his prophets and his missionaries and his servants act on behalf of him in bringing together the people of Israel. And so we're going to kind of continue this idea of how God has not forgotten Zion in the next few verses. And I really, really like the wording of just how he describes God's love for his people. For can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee, O house of Israel. Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. Not only does he compare his love for his people as even higher and holier than the love of a mother for her own child, but he also says, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. And that is clearly referring to the scars on the palms of his hands from being raised up on the cross to atone for the sins of his people. And by his people, it means everyone, but also the Israelites. And I really, really like that imagery of, I did this thing that was horribly difficult and horribly painful to save my people. And it is marked by the scars that I have eternally on my body. Because, remember, even when Jesus is resurrected, he keeps his scars. Dude, I love that imagery of Jesus being like, hey, I love you. And if you think that you can deny it, then look at my palms. Look at my wrists. Look at my sides. Try and say that I don't love you when you see the physical remnants of something that I did out of complete love. Thy children shall make haste against thy destroyers, and they that made thee waste shall go forth of thee. Lift up thine eyes round about, and behold, all these gather themselves together, and they shall come to thee. And as I live, saith the Lord, thou shalt surely clothe thee with them all, as with an ornament, and bind them on even as a bride. For thy waste and thy desolate places, and the land of thy destruction, shall even now be too narrow by reason of the inhabitants, and they that swallowed thee up shall be far away. The children whom thou shalt have, after thou hast lost the first, shall again in thine ears say, The place is too strait for me. Give place to me, that I may dwell. By the way, that straight in verse 20 is S-T-R-A-I-T, which means difficult. Same as the word that's in straight and narrow path, meaning difficult narrow path. So, yeah. Then shalt thou say in thine heart, Who hath begotten me these, seeing I have lost my children, and am desolate, a captive, and removing to and fro? And who hath brought up these? Behold, I was left alone. These, where have they been? Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will lift up mine hand to the Gentiles, and set up my standard to the people. And they shall bring thy sons in their arms, and thy daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders. And the kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face towards the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. I like that wording, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. I think we can connect that to a moment in 3rd Nephi, where right before Jesus comes, a person named Nephi is a prophet at the time, and all of the righteous people out of the Nephites, which is actually a minority, are getting ridiculed because the people who are non-believers believe that the time for Jesus coming has already passed. And so they gave a time period. They're like, okay, a certain amount of time from today, if he does not come before then we're going to kill all of the believers. Like, that is the stakes that were there. And so I think it would be fair at this time for all those believers to be ashamed to wait for him, because it means that they're gonna die if he doesn't. And then, this is, spoilers, but miraculously, Nephi is praying to God, like the night before, the time is up, and the night before, they're gonna kill everyone. God is like, don't worry, Jesus is gonna be born tonight. And then that is the night where there was no darkness, and there's a new star in the sky, and all that good stuff. Even though I think it would be entirely fair for those Nephites to be ashamed to wait for Jesus, because they're gonna be killed, and they're surrounded by a vocal majority that are ridiculing them for their beliefs. I'm sure that there were some that stopped believing because of the ridicule, but the ones that didn't were eventually proven right. Anyways, I just think that was an interesting parallel that we could draw between these two sort of situations. For shall the prey be taken from the mighty, or the lawful captives delivered? But thus saith the Lord, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contendeth with thee, and I will save thy children. And I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh. They shall be drunken with their own blood, as with sweet wine. And all flesh shall know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. This chapter is full of such powerful wording. In the very beginning, Isaiah uses very powerful imagery to describe how he's been called of God to glorify him. And then he goes on to talk about the gathering of Israel, and how the Lord will comfort his people, and that he has not forgotten or forsaken Zion. Those powerful images of like a woman not forgetting her sucking child, just as God won't forget his people, and how he has graven the people of Israel on the palms of his hands. Like, these very powerful images that Isaiah is very good at are all over in this chapter, and I really like how powerful they are. And then he also uses very powerful language kind of closer to the end, where after the gathering of Israel and everyone is gathered, they will be given power. Kings shall be their fathers, queens shall be their mothers, and they will bow down to the people of Israel. And also, like, God will contend with him that contendeth with thee. Like, God will fight on our behalf, and if we have God fighting on our behalf, then they have no chance. And so, I don't know, like, I really like just how powerful all of Isaiah's words are. Like, if you read through, he is just so sure of everything he's saying, and he says it in such a bold way. So I'm sure you're astounded that my standout verse for this chapter is verse 13, which, to remind you, it reads, Sing, O heavens, and be joyful, O earth, for the feet of those who are in the east shall be established, and break forth into singing, O mountains, for they shall be smitten no more, for the Lord hath comforted his people, and will have mercy upon his afflicted. And again, with those powerful images, like, sing, O mountains, sing, O heavens, be joyful, O earth. The Lord has comforted his people and will have mercy upon the afflicted. Like, those are such powerful words and such sweeping images. I really, really like it. And it also just talks about how the Lord has comforted his people. Like, the gathering of Israel is the Lord comforting his people, and the Lord reminding his people that they have not been abandoned or forgotten. The gathering of Israel will be a joyful event for everyone. Like, it will be a miracle when it does happen. And, according to our modern day prophet, it is currently happening. I just love it. The way that Isaiah poetically uses images of nature singing, like to really portray how just like the world is rejoicing now that the Israelites are being gathered. I really do like that. And according to President Nelson, like, the gathering of Israel is the greatest work happening on the earth today. President Nelson also likes using very broad, very bold statements, because that is a very bold statement to say that, like, the gathering of Israel is the most important work on the face of the earth today. But he kind of mirrors Isaiah in that way, where Isaiah also talks about this event kind of as this amazing event full of rejoicing and the love of God and all this amazing stuff. So, yeah. I think that'll be the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'm glad to have you with me. So as always, there are those links in the show notes. There is just a web version of the Book of Mormon. There is 2 app versions of the Book of Mormon. All of it's for free. So that is just if you don't have your own copy, whether it be print or digital already, you can use those links to find your own copy so you can read along, because you should read along, because it's cool. And then there's another link just called Let Me Know You Learned, and that is a place where you can message me and tell me neat stuff that you think that I will find neat, because I find everything neat. Again, thank you so much for listening. I'm glad to have you here with me. I'll talk to you later. Bye.